Good day, everybody. My name's Eric McKenzie, and we will be talking about the crisis theory today. Members of my team are Tandis Porpistani, Carla Torres, and Carrie DeLucci. Everyone experiences crisis, whether it's personal or external, and us as social workers will most likely need to support a client during a crisis situation at some point during our career. Personal crisis includes mental health, the events that happen in someone's personal life, such as death, birth of a child, divorce, etc. External crises could include natural disasters, so some of the fires going on in California, hurricanes happening, houses burning down. Crisis can be a very scary time and it could create issues for a person. However, there is opportunity for growth by learning new coping skills and strengths. So principle number one of crisis theory would be time limited and short term. So a person's in crisis, we want to get them out of crisis as quickly as possible. So what this means is that we're going to have to speed through some of the stuff, some of the rapport, some of the assessment in order to get to what we need to do to get the client out of crisis, back to baseline. Brings us to principle number two, engagement and assessment occur simultaneously. So once again, we need to build that rapport quickly. We have to identify needs that need to be met. And it's important for the social worker to be empathetic, connect with the client, and utilize active listening to understand what they need and how they can best be served throughout the crisis process. The focus is on the client's strengths and the needs of the specific crisis during this time. Okay, so principle number three says meet concrete or emotional needs of the client. So what the social worker wants to do is support the client or link them to appropriate supports for their needs. So reach out to the community and try to get them the resources that they need. Now some of these needs can be emotional or they can be concrete. So emotional needs might include just validation, identifying strengths, possible needs for hospitalization, just sitting down and talking with their client and seeing exactly what they feel like they need. Some of the concrete needs could be help with bills, water, shelter, food, especially important during times of natural disasters. So during the assessment process, the client, a social worker, will go ahead and develop a plan for meeting those needs, and the social worker will connect the client then with the resources that they need in order to get those needs met. So moving on to principle four, helping the client return to baseline. So remember, the only purpose of the crisis intervention is to return the client to baseline functioning. Okay, other areas of functioning cannot be evaluated until the current crisis is resolved. So we want to work with them on long-term treatment, but we need to get them past this point first. Okay, so we're going to share with you three different types of crisis. First of it being a developmental crisis. So these are events in the normal flow of life that creates change and you have some kind of extreme response to it. So college graduation, something that's stressful. A birth of a child, maybe buying a home, things like that. Then you got situational crises, uncommon and extraordinary events that a person has no way of forecasting or controlling. So these are injuries that might happen to you, sexual assault, a loss of a job, illness, the death of a loved one. And then existential crises, escalating inner conflict related to issues of purpose of life. So this is remorse maybe over past life, feeling life has no meaning, questioning value, things like this. Well, next we're going to jump into practice settings for crisis theory. Okay, as stated in the practice principles for crisis theory, the intervention is time limited and short term, as we discussed. Social worker needs to link the client with the services that will quickly meet their needs and help mitigate the crisis as quickly and as safely as possible. There are many settings that the crisis theory can be applied to. For example, a crisis can involve mental health, national disaster, some of the stuff that we talked about before, homelessness. And the crisis theory can be used with a diverse client system. So immigrants, LGBTQ, veterans, and it could be used across the board. So a couple of practice settings for the crisis theory. So a couple of them we came up with was things like crisis centers, sexual assault crisis centers, crisis response centers, things like this. Usually open 24 hours a day, being manned by a social worker. Somebody calls in, they have to identify if they're in crisis or not, and then assist them through that. get them the stuff that they need. Families immigrations, we see this happening a lot. Just the trek through up to the United States might be traumatic as well. Then if they're getting caught and they're put in some of these detention centers, this is all going to be something very traumatic. Okay, another setting for crisis theory could be the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So you have crisis lines, suicide crisis lines, and there's different ones as well. There's national ones, there's ones for veterans, LGBTQ has one. So these are different types of places where a person in crisis that are thinking of taking their lives can call and get the assistance that they need. So some strengths and weaknesses of the crisis theory. So some strengths. Provides tools for responding in a productive way. Clinicians will help the client gain control, lessen the crisis. We identify coping skills to avoid any future crisis. So help identify any services needed. Just going over real quick again, identifying coping skills. So we want to try to once the crisis is over, prepare our client for what to do in the event that something would happen again. So sometimes we might have safety plans, something like that could assist us with that. Some of the weaknesses, rapport has to be established immediately, and this is because of the type of situation we're in. So sometimes we have to go over that quickly, and that may be a weakness. So depending on the settings, resources may be limited. So for instance, if a person's crisis is because they're homeless, it may be, we have to see what resources are available. If it's hotel stay, something like that, until we get them into permanent housing. So lack of cultural awareness could deteriorate the client state as well. Diverse client systems limitations. Crisis theory can be adjusted to serve clients from different cultures. However, a person that is assisting a client at a time of crisis is not culturally aware, then they can harm the client instead of helping them. It's important that the social worker let the client identify the coping skills based on their culture instead of the social worker trying to give them a set of coping skills. It's also important the social worker takes into consideration the client's gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, so they can better serve them. And class, thank you for your time. That is the crisis theory. I wish you all a good day. Thank you.